Hey guys, it's Lantern. Bring to you the best of Zoo in my attempts to bring the Zoo deck against every other sort of main deck out there in the format that you can expect to face and show you guys what to do. I played a game against Pod and pretty easily won. He openly admitted that he was new to the format. Turns out a lot of people are starting to get into Modern. So that's cool. But I mean, I really didn't give him any options. There was, as you'll see, like it was just very fast. Something I managed to do is I changed his deck list. I'm showing you the old deck list currently right here, and then I'll show you the new one. I decided that Zoo needs burn. It needs burn right now, I feel like. As odd as that sounds, I've been looking online, and most of the decks that are currently doing very, very well online have giant blockers in your way, and the only way you can get rid of them is burn. It's sort of a plethora of reasons why Gruul Zoo right now is not 4-0ing or 3-1ing online, and it comes down to the fact that the metagame is pretty prepared for Gruul Zoo. For a while, it was just dominating. So it's shifted to decks that sort of run Lightning Helix and stall your game plan out. They're running Finks like in Jund, Junk, and there are also a lot of like Soul Sisters going on right now. So I think it's important to have burn because there's a lot of little targets that you need to hit. In Soul Sisters, you need to kill their sisters. You know, in Junk, you need to make sure that their smiters get smited right away. And so I think it's important for burn, especially also because a big one is control is starting to use things to slow down your game plan. And I think it's important to use burn as sort of like your finishing touch. Now I want to say that Gruul Zoo in my head was always incomplete. I think it's an incomplete Zoo because Zoo's always been 20%. You know, like it's always been about 20 cards of burn, 20 cards of creatures, and 20 cards of lands. And I think we need to get back to that sort of root of what Zoo is. Because the hyper-aggression is just not working right now in the metagame. I just don't think it's working. So I'd like to have cards that sort of stand on their own. So I've changed the deck to be more sort of old school Zoo with the flavors of Gruul Zoo. As you can see, it's still creature heavy. 27, not 30 though. 27, and it is more focused on sort of the burn game plan as well. I've got 4 Boro. The big changes are the fact that I just took out all the extra creatures that I didn't really need. My 2 flex slots of Thalia are now gone, and I've taken out an extra Gruul sort of Rampager. Rampagers are good, don't get me wrong. Cutting a Rampager hurt me, but I think the fact that I'm packing a ton and a half more burn makes up for it. And the fact that, like, I'd Rampager over walls, I'd Rampager over, like, little things, and that helped. But Lightning Helix and bolting and Pillar of Flaming, these things, too, works, especially if you're proactive about it and you can bolt things that they don't block. For example, a Deathrite Shaman. So I think it's important to have that. And in fact, I'm still even tempted to cut out Burning Tree Emissary altogether. And now I know that sounds sacrilegious because it's like blasphemous. This is sort of what's been speeding up Zoo. But while it's speeding up Zoo, it's still keeping you stronger in these 2 colors, which is forcing you into a creature base that's not necessarily the best creature base in the world. If Noctel was around, I could justify it. But if Noctel was around, I couldn't justify not having the white stronger anyways. So what I've done is I haven't changed my mana base yet, and I may still do that. To just sort of like make it so that I can fetch maybe a white a little bit more. Maybe switch the Sacred Foundry and Temple Garden to 2/1 instead. But I've definitely bumped up my white amount. As you can see, I've got 2 Boros Charms in the main and 4 Lightning Helix in the main. I've got Pillar of Flames right now instead of Paths. They could easily be switched because right now just Sphinx is a big problem. If I was doing this, I may put a single path in there and then cut a Pillar of Flame. I may cut the Pillar of Flames altogether and put some in the side. That's sort of the way it works, and you can see my white is also shining in my sideboard. 2 Topro Orb against the Naya Pod that's sort of everywhere. Twin is starting to gain strength again. Fairy Macabre because I don't know. I don't like cutting. Maybe it's the legacy side of me, but I don't like cutting any form of graveyard hate. There's always going to be 2 in there and 2 artifact hate at least in my sideboard. And Fairy Macabre, again, I've discussed its pluses. Kitchen Finks is a big one. I'm running Kitchen Finks right now because there's a lot of red deck wins online as well, and Kitchen Finks covers that. Kitchen Finks is a good way to put it out there and just stall out the red deck wins matchup until we can win with our repeatable burn, aka our creatures. Qasali Pride Mage because I'm running white, and there's no real reason not to have this exiled trigger, especially if I've got Pump or something. And it destroys an artifact or enchantment. I like covering both my bases. Boros Charm, this is because there's a lot more control running around right now, and Boros Charm either deals 4 damage to the dome, which is fantastic, or permanents are indestructible, which is also fantastic. Paths are there for your junk matchups. Volcanic Fallout's there for like all your little weenie matchups. This is actually really, really good in your Soul Sisters, which remember is just a white weenie with a life gain option. Anywho, let's talk about this pod matchup. Now I haven't seen Naya Pod in a while. It's sort of gotten less popular as Naya Pod did so well with Voice of Resurgence in the last Pro Tour. And I want to discuss something else here. I'm keeping a risky enough hand. I've got 2 Loom Lions and a Burning Tree Emissary. In this deck, I'm not treating Burning Tree Emissary as must be casted on turn 2, as the Gruul decks do. In my head, Burning Tree Emissary is just a free bear that can come at any point in time. Now, whether that's turn 3, whether that's turn 4, is still alright, you know? But the only thing that I may have turned it on into turn 2 if I had a Flint Hoof Boar. But the only thing I've got is a Tarmogoyf, who in our deck I will openly admit is a little weaker than in the Jund deck. And he's playing a ramp deck. With the colors that he's looking at, it looks like Pod. So I'm assuming that I'm not going to be getting more than a 2-3 Goyf at any point in time soon. So the best thing I can do here, I think, is actually put out more pressure. If he's going to put out a wall soon enough, I'd rather have more dudes out with some power, mediocre power, than a very powerful Tarmogoyf that keeps getting blocked. So I'm going to attack here, pretend like I've got the Rampager, just because, I don't know, that's good playing. But then I'm going to put out a Curate Ape, and I'm going to put out another Loom Line. I don't want to waste my mana, I want to use both of them. And Burning Tree Emissary into a Tarmogoyf, that gives me, what, 2-3 power, where this gives me 4 power spread across 2 dudes. While it's true he could have a burn spell, if he had a burn spell and ran out the burn spell against the Tarmogoyf right now, I'd be screwed anyways. So it's not the best. And he's got actually kind of a bunch of win cons here. No way to tutor, but a win con. So he's putting out the Wall of Roots, which does a fantastic job blocking this, as any walls do. But I draw a Rampager, which is good, but I think I'd rather do the Tarmogoyf at this point. The main reason is I feel like I want to put more board pressure out there. He's only got 1 Wall of Roots, and yes, I could deny him a mana by rampaging over, but I think it would just be better because I could do the same amount of damage with Tarmogoyf. Also, if I swing with Tarmogoyf next turn and he and then I Rampager, Tarmogoyf's going to get that extra buff. Make sure that you do that after blockers are declared and you Rampager, that you remember that Tarmogoyf gets a buff if there's no creatures in the graveyard. So I figure I'm going to get the same amount of damage, maybe more damage because of the Burning Tree Emissary, if I just put it out there. So I just run it out there. No big deal. And here's a bad situation. Naya Pod needs to get to 5 mana as soon as possible. It's got a maximum of 4 mana right now, and he does not have that critical 5th land. There's been times that I've killed the weenies. Anytime I see a shaky mana base, especially in a Naya Pod where there's no way to do triple red, I aim for that Birds of Paradise. That thing's gotta go. Because that's his way he's gonna get that Kiki-Jiki out and then eventually kill me. So the best thing I can do, I draw here, it's another land. I'm gonna play this land out untapped because I can at this point. It doesn't really make a difference. I'm not gonna use it because I'm gonna Rampage her. So this could have come in tapped, but I'd rather him think that I've got like a path or something in my hand than nothing. So he's going to go ahead and do his thing, Wall of Roots, Restoration Angel on the Wall of Roots that recovers full health. And I'm going to take a minute to tank because I'm considering denying him mana as I didn't see another land drop. But I eventually come to the conclusion that if I do this, I basically get 2 more damage on him. He drops to 6 because Tarmogoyf gets the buff, and then I Rampage her over this. And if I do this, I get 3, which is good because that brings him down to 5, which means he's in range that even if I don't draw any form of burn, he's dead in the water. And also because Restoration Angel is going to kill my pressure, and I'd rather have more board pressure than him. At this point, he's in a very serious catch-22 because he has to combo out to win, but I can deny him one of his combo pieces here as well and force him into just having to play the mid-range game, which works for Naya Pod, but is awkward for Naya Pod, especially when you've got out so many creatures and a Tarmogoyf out. And Tarmogoyf is also denying him any chance to like bolt or flame slash here because then he gets bigger, and it's pretty quickly the end of him anyways. So he gets out fire lit thicket here, which he finally got the 5th mana he needed. But running out of Kiki-Jiki here does nothing but, I don't know, get an extra block here, and he needs to make sure that other than extra blocks, what he gets is a way to stop me from swinging, which I'm not he's not gonna do here. And he's tanking. He also admitted to being like new to the format here. And we talked a little bit. Speaking of which, Modern Masters actually did drag a lot of people into the format. It's kind of cool that there's this much an MCG Salvation or the modern forum has been about as popular as standard recently, which is definitely cool. But that does mean that prices on cards aren't going down anytime soon. Modern Masters was not to help prices, but to put more cardboard out there, basically. So prices aren't shrinking; they just aren't inflating by that much, and it's more available to get them. That being said, if you don't have things like Tarmogoyf now and you still want to run this deck, you may really want to consider getting him. He's not going to be reprinted anytime soon. Modern Masters was the first one, maybe in Modern Masters 2, but that would come out in 2 years from now. I can't see this guy getting any lower. The rest of this deck is dirt cheap. I mean, these guys are like quarters. They're the more expensive ones. Curd Ape, that monkey is like 10 cents. As much as I love, me some Ken Meyer. Ken Meyer, by the way, the guy who made the art for Curd Ape, is actually a pretty cool guy. He did an art tutorial at my school once. But anyways, I've got no tricks here, and he's like, I think I'm pretty much dead unless you've got tricks here, and he's got to go for the blocks because otherwise he's dead. And that means he loses his Birds of Paradise. It means goodbye any chance at the Kiki-Jiki. I don't know. I'm gonna lose my Curd Ape here, and that's fine because I'm gonna replace it with like Experimental One and another Curd Ape, and unless he draws anything that helps him to swing, which he does a Plains, which does nothing, he could maybe have the combo win, but he couldn't survive that last turn. So forcing him into catch-22 and not letting him combo out and playing the mid-range game is pretty bad for them, especially because their mid-range game is way worse than Jund, which is hard to win against this deck. But if you don't see any kitchen finks from them, you're pretty much in the clear so long as you've got a couple burn spell or a rampager. So we move on to game 2. We didn't sideboard here. I think I would have had more of an advantage if we sideboard anyways, because I've got a bunch of cards in my hate for sideboarding. I'm going to take a risky hand here. I keep a 1-land hand, and I wanted to take it, especially because it would mana screw me. And I wanted to make sure that this new splash, which is more focused on white and being true Naya again, would work out. And I wanted to see that, especially because my creature base is so focused on red and green. And I keep the burn a little bit focused on red and green too. Well, just specifically red. So I want to risk it, especially he mulliganed, so that was good for me. And I want to see if this has the guts and glory. Even if we got to go to game 3, game 3 is fine too. And I would keep a less risky hand. Generally, I keep more risky hands if I win game 1. Because I feel like, especially after sideboard, there's some generic sideboard hate for aggro that most mid-range or control decks have. So being a little riskier helps. And I'm just going to put out, I'm not even going to, no worries with the bolt or anything, no reason to. Curt Ape's going to pump the experimental one, aka pseudo Noctel. And we're going to be getting in there for shock damage. This is one of the rare reasons that Curt Ape, or that experimental one sometimes is better than Noctel. I don't have a Naya mana. I'm going to still get to him being a 3/3. Now, he puts out a Wall of Roots. The real thing is I can bolt the Wall of Roots and kill that thing dead. Deny him some mana and a big blocker. But instead, with my 1 mana, if I had 2 mana, that would be the obvious thing to do. I'm going to go ahead and do a 3/3. I want to make a board state is what I'm really trying to do here. Because next turn, I can bolt it anyways. And yes, he could get some powerful 4-drop out. But I want to make sure that I maybe have a chance to respond to the Restoration Angel for whatever reason. And he goes ahead and Birthing Pods, which you can do. I mean, it makes his Wall of Roots worse. But here's the thing, and I'm going to pause this video for this part. And I get out the mana, which is fantastic, and it gives me my totally needed assorted of colors. Now here's the deal. I'm going to swing it all here, and I'm giving him 2 choices. He can block with a Wall of Roots, 1 Wall of Roots, keeping 1 Wall of Roots open, and that blows for me. And what I'll do is I will put out Curt Ape, and then the Curt Ape will not really do anything other than add some board pressure and some eventually damage down the road. And I will Pillar of Flame the Wall of Roots that blocks. That's the worst situation that could happen right now, because then he could Birthing Pod into something, untap Birthing Pod, continue a chain, combo out. Maybe, I don't know. I'm not a super combo player, but I don't like having combo pieces on the board. If he did that, that's the worst thing that could happen, but I think I can still win by swinging all out and then forcing the rest of the burn down his throat. Because he's going to take some damage off Birthing Pod anyways. And I may hold like a bolt or something here. Oh, and let me fast forward. I realized my mistake, and I put the correct mana out there. If he does that, if he blocks with both of them to preserve his life total, what I will do then is I will Lightning Bolt and Pillar Flame his walls, killing them both, denying him any chance to do anything with Birthing Pod, forcing him to play fair, which is not what this deck wants to do if it can avoid it. As we look into his hand, he'd have no play next turn if that happened. Or he chooses not to block whatsoever. If he doesn't block whatsoever, that's 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 damage, dropping him down to 5, which is the perfect amount of damage I need for Pillar of Flame and Lightning Bolt to just finish him off. So he's in a catch-22. There's really no good thing for him to do. And we leave the mana open, of course, when we attack. so that way we give the illusion to Rampager. Mid-range decks hate Rampager. They will just constantly think it's in our hand and play around it because they don't want to deal with it. And that's what he says here. He goes, no blocks, and I'm like, that's fine. We're gonna go ahead and bolt, and you're done. You're dead. I guess he says he could have won the following turn, but that's again what Zoo does, is it forces catch-22s with its speed. So anyways, that's the deck that I'm trying to improve on a little bit. I'd still like to fit a path or two in the main board if I can. If I can't, that's fine. Burning Tree Emissary, I understand it's a necessary evil right now, and I'm working with it. If I ever feel like I need more burn, I will cut this. I would like to have another land, but that's hard to keep in a 60 card deck, especially a creature-heavy deck. Truth be told, maybe cutting Burning Tree Emissary and adding another path, adding another land, or adding 2 paths and a land, and I don't know, maybe 3 and another Boros Charm, or 3 paths could be the future of what this deck does, or put myself back up to the 4 Gore Clan Rampagers. So that's it for Modern Zoo right now. I like this deck a lot more than I liked my previous version. The sideboard's still totally in flux, as always when making a new sideboard for a new version of your deck. But again, this is the deck that I built. And if you guys ever look back into the Zoo threads, I also have it in the main forum of Modern. At some point, I talk about how I go about my deck building, and I always take the entire deck and wipe it off completely from my deck building, and then I put the core of the deck back in, or reevaluate what I think the core is, and then put that back in, and then rebuild on that core specifically to what the metagame is doing again. So that way I can always make sure that my deck is up to date, and I'm not having lingering feelings over things like Thalia, just that I enjoy, or Domri, which I enjoy, and that was good for a more controlled metagame. But this is more of a less of a controlled metagame right now, but more prepared against aggro. So I think you need to be a little bit more of a stable aggro deck right now with some burn and long-term goals. Anyways, if you guys have any questions, shoot them to me on the Zoo thread. As always, Lantern, and signing off.